Now, I'm going to try to be concise here. We have a new relationship that needs to happen. The relationship has to happen between what you might call the self and a part of the self. Now, what do we mean by the self? Let me begin with a quote from T.S. Eliot, the British poet, in one of his quartets. He said, "We shall never cease from exploring. And the end of our explorations will be to arrive at the place we started, but to know that place for the first time." This is what we do. We start, I believe, and this is this, when I speak of the adult client, I'm thinking of the most evolved form of the self. Now, we can't go into a big discussion because it's such a big conversation piece. It's such a big topic. What do we mean by the self? In a nutshell, from my own point of view, I believe the self is a process. I don't think it's a fixed entity. I think it's an unfolding of, from the moment of conception through the 9 months of gestation, birth, through the couple of years of implicit memory into explicit memory. The self is being formed through contact, relational contact, and through experience over time. So the sense of the I-ness, of the me-ness, continues to evolve over time. And then what do? We start having experiences, and some of them are negative, and they're painful and adverse life experiences. And that starts to actually create a story that we tell ourselves about ourselves. Now, it's a false story. And without even knowing it, our clients become, unlike us, we never do this, but our clients become characters in that story without even knowing it. And our job, I believe, is to help them undo, dismantle the story so that they can slowly come to a sense of who they really be, and eventually to come back to where they started, but now to be there consciously and to know it truly for the first time. That's the self. Okay? When I speak of the adult client, or I say Carmen, that's what I'm referring to. Now, I think we all understand that the parts of we're all multiples. As a matter of fact, you could turn around right now to the person next to the many people sitting next to you and, make yourself known, because we are not one solid personality. We're different, if you will, states of consciousness, and we move in and out of them in different situations. So if your supervisor or boss calls you on the carpet, basically what you're going to, have you ever noticed how you feel a little bit younger? Just a tad. Yeah. We all do this. And this is really where the whole process of dissociation needs to be seen as a process on a continuum. From the kind of spacing out we do when we drive down the highway, and we don't know how we got down there 3 exits, because basically I was on an island in the Bahamas while I was driving, to the other extreme, which is the dissociative identity disorder. All of us, parts. Now what happens, unfortunately, is that as the self unfolds, and in the, by the way, I forgot to mention, you notice these up the citations in the parenthesis after the first bullet. Okay, the first book, that's the EMDR on dissociation, the progressive approach. The second one is Van der Hart's book, the Haunted Self, and then Richard Schwartz has the internal family system. April Steele has published her own work on work doing what she calls imaginal nurturing. Thank you. And I have them up there because each of them has a different way of talking about the self. But what I get from all of them is that the self is really a psycho-spiritual, I think it leads us back to the sense of absolute oneness, who we are, not only oneness here, but oneness everywhere. That's how I understand it. Now, you don't have to go that far, but it's at least psychological. I think it is actually a psycho-spiritual unfolding, is what happens with the self. So it's like the adult capacities start to unfold as we get older and older, and as we get freer and freer of that story. Okay?